Hi again. Thanks very much for joining us in our first virtual class, and special thanks to Sophie for doing such a good job of the first virtual presentation. Now, as I mentioned with regards to the individual presentations, I'd actually like to give you guys the option of presenting the same way that Sophie did, or another option is an alternative option for those of you that are still to do their individual presentation is to do a pre-recording, right? So what I'm going to do in this short clip is step you through how to do a pre-recording. So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to talk you through how to do a recorded version of your individual presentation, or indeed, if you want to do your group presentations this same way, I'm going to step you through a presentation that you've seen already with regards to the structure of the International Marketing Plan. So up here we have the Home tab, and I can put in a new slide. For example, when I'm on the Home tab, I can change the layout of the slides, or I can click on the Insert tab, and on the Insert tab I can insert a table, a picture, a shape, a text box, and all the way over here I can also insert a recording. So for this presentation I am going to choose to overlay a recording and show you how it's done. Okay, so let's get going. So this is a recording for instructing students on how to structure their international marketing plan, and it's doubling as a presentation on how to insert a audio recording for each of your slides. All right, so right now I want to insert my first audio recording for this first slide. So I'm just going to click on Record Audio. I'm going to give it a title, record the name. What am I going to call it? Structure of International Marketing Plan. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it. Ready? Here we go. International marketing is a process of analysis, planning, implementation, and monitoring of a marketing mix that is tailored for the specific foreign markets that organizations are seeking to enter. This short presentation is demonstrating the suggested structure of an international marketing plan. My name's Dr. Sharon Schembri, and I look forward to seeing how you use the information presented in this short recording. Okay, so now you can see the little audio icon where I can play back my audio. If I like it, I can keep it. If I don't like it, I can ditch it and try it again. So if I wanted to ditch it, I would right-click on this and just drop it out, cut it. I can edit it, but it's probably easier just to do it again if you don't like what you did. So you've got various options here. You can insert an audio, you can insert a video, or you can insert a screen recording which records your computer screen and the related audio before inserting the recording onto your screen. So there's various ways you can do it. The easiest way I would suggest is click on Audio, Record Audio, and now you've got a slide with the audio recording over the top. Okay, let's go to the next slide and do the same. I'm going to call this one title page. Here we go. The suggested length of an international marketing plan is 20 pages. Of course, that's always plus or minus 10%. So if you're 2 pages over, that's more than okay. The first page actually doesn't count towards your page limit of 20 pages. The first page is a title page, and the title page needs to present a professional style of document. It needs to include a title that summarizes what your document actually is, and the title page also needs to include your group member names and your student numbers. So let's say, for example, that you were the Wolf marketers who are working with GreenPro partners targeting Latin America residential market. Their title, for example, might be Marketing GreenPro Partners into Latin America residential market. Simple as that, right? So the title is actually a summary of what the document and the content is about. Okay, there we go. Now we've got an audio overlay for our title page. Let's talk about the executive summary. I'm going to call this one executive summary. Ready? Here we go. The executive summary is a one-page summary of the entire report that you are presenting. Ideally, I should be able to read this one-page executive summary and not have to read the rest of the report. So the executive summary needs to summarize the analysis that's presented in the macro environmental analysis, the industry analysis, the internal analysis. It needs to flag what the objectives are for this marketing plan, and it needs to summarize succinctly what's your recipe for the marketing mix that you're recommending for this international marketing plan. And the way that I write an executive summary is to write it last. You write the plan, you know, your 20 pages of your plan, and then you basically take those 20 pages and you write a one-page summary of what those 20 pages are. Now, the highest grade of marketing plans will start with a statement that is an attention-grabbing statement, like, for example, flagging the very high level potential growth in the Asian corporate social responsibility market. Okay, so GreenPro partners going into Asia, pitching corporate social responsibility with regards to pest control. We've got high humidity levels in Asia, and so it's a prime market for GreenPro partners. So write something, one sentence that catches the reader's attention and gives them a reason to at least read the rest of that one-page summary, if not the rest of the report. Okay, so we've got our audio overlay on the executive summary now. Let's talk about the macro environmental analysis. The macro environment, okay, I don't like that. Wait a minute, I just stumbled on my words a little bit, right? So we'll just cancel that, try again. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. The macro environment is the big picture, the broad situation that each and every organisation must contend with. In the current environment, we've got the coronavirus global pandemic to deal with. So this will most probably feature in each of the macro environmental analysis that the various teams put forward, regardless of the industry that you're operating in, regardless of the products that you are intending to offer these foreign markets. However, each of you will actually focus in on specific macro factors in varying ways. Now, a framework to help you work through the macro environmental analysis is the PEST framework, or the PESTEL framework, as it's commonly referred to. PESTEL is an acronym that stands for politics, economics, sociocultural, technological, environmental, and legal macro environments, right? So it's basically triggering you to look at each of these macro environments and consider what are the specific macro factors that are relevant here. So you want to identify, describe, and discuss each relevant identified macro factor. And you want to talk about it in the macro environmental context, right? So there is no mention of GreenPro Partners, CoWorks, or STEMbright in this macro environmental analysis. This is analysis of the big picture. Okay, so my recommendation is to spend maybe between minimum 2 and 4 pages presenting your macro environmental analysis. Part of what you're going to be graded on is which macro factors did you look at, and which did you actually leave out that you probably should have looked at. Okay. All right. Let me give you a clue for each of the 3. Okay. So with CoWorks, for example, the gig economy in the socio-cultural macro environment, the gig economy is very much a macro factor that's relevant to a business that is focused on sharing workspaces. The environmentalism is very much a factor for GreenPro Partners, regardless of the geographic target that you're looking at. So in terms of environmentalism, you can explain that increasing environmental consciousness is environmental consciousness is increasing globally, and consumers as well as businesses are more and more so considering making green choices with regards to consumption, with regards to business operations. And maybe there's some statistics that you can throw in to support such statements, and of course they will need to be referenced. All right, now moving on beyond, sorry, I forgot one, STEMbright, okay, STEMbright. So with regards to STEMbright, okay, macro environmental factor there to consider, of course, is technology, right? So visual technology and the emerging trends within visual technology, the uptake of visual technology with regards to online marketing. These are macro trends that are very relevant to the STEMbright macro environmental analysis. Okay, moving on to the industry analysis. Start with what industry are you operating in? So that's up to your team to decide what industry are you operating in. You could use the Porter's 5 forces. That is actually one thing that you might not have room to do. Porter's 5 forces actually takes a lot of space to do a good industry analysis. So my recommendation is to do a positioning map where you have half a page that shows the respective competitors. So you have to decide which industry you're in first, and whichever industry you're in, then you're identifying which competitors that you are either directly or indirectly competing with, and then where each of those competitors are positioned in this market. So identify who is offering what in the industry. Now, to do a positioning map, remember, an important decision there is what's your evaluative criteria. the standard evaluative criteria, you've heard me say many times in the semester, is price and quality. But for example, if you're doing a positioning map for Green Pro partners, again, regardless of geography, then maybe environmentalism, environmental consciousness, green eco operations might be a good option for your horizontal axis, and then plot the various competitors respective to who's doing what in the green space. For a vertical axis, you might look at pricing, for example. Okay, so by using pricing and environmental consciousness or green operation on the horizontal axis, you will actually show that Green Pro Partners has a competitive advantage. Doing a similar thing for STEMbrite, you might pitch the, again, just basic vertical axis as pricing, and the horizontal axis in terms of innovation. Simple as that. For CoWorks, how about what's the CoWorks advantage? Well, it's an app, isn't it? So I don't know, pricing and mobile innovation, because it's a mobile app that is their competitive advantage. And while maybe some co-sharing, co-working space organizations are doing well in the co-working space, maybe CoWorks has the advantage with regards to their app. All right, so there you go. Macro environmental analysis up front, moving on to the industry analysis and competitor analysis in that same section. Actually, you know what? I should actually change this to, I'm going to change that macro environmental analysis to read situation analysis, because that's more accurate. A macro environmental analysis is just the pastel, whereas put it together with the industry analysis and it's now a situation analysis. Lovely. So now that we have moved through the demanding analysis of the macro environmental analysis and the industry analysis, we can talk about typically what looks to be more simplistic as the internal organization analysis. My recommendation here is to present 2 pages. Maybe one page is a 2x2 matrix that presents the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the second page, maybe half of that page at least, is an explanation of what that matrix shows. Make sure you give it a table label, so table 1. Green Pro Partners internal analysis. And notice I'm calling it an internal analysis. I'm not calling it a SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis is just the name of the framework. Okay, so take care with that. Make sure that you're identifying what is the core competence of the organization, and here you might flag the vision and the mission of the organization. You might even look at a resources-based view of the organization. 2 pages. Lovely. All right. Oh, whoa, what happened there? Okay, what's next? All right, now we're going to talk about our marketing objectives. Put the audio on. It only takes 24 characters, so marketing objectives. Oops, there we go. Ready? Let's talk about the marketing objectives. The marketing objectives are typically listed as 3 to 5 SMART objectives. And as I've listed on this slide, just number them 1 through 3 or 1 through 5, and it says to do what by when. SMART objectives are those that are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, they are realistic, and they include a timeline. So in this first objective, for example, you want to target X market. So for example, the London market, you want CoWorks to launch before 2021. Well, then you state that to target the UK London market and launch CoWorks before the end of 2021. And so you work through each of your objectives. These are marketing objectives. I'm suggesting that your first objective needs to be to launch whatever brand product in whatever market, to capture X percentage of market share by whatever date, and the third objective, very basically, is to achieve I don't know, you could put something there, to achieve 25% brand awareness in the Latin American market before the end of 2022, or maybe to achieve X number of sales before the end of 2021. You could put a profit-oriented objective in there, or you could pitch, securing 6 to 8 new retailers each quarter, you see? So instead of putting annual, I've put in quarterly goals. And so it's very specific and it's very measurable. And that's important because when you actually do this for a job, part of what you'll be required to do is monitor each and every penny that you spend and make sure that your organization, your brand is actually achieving these set objectives. If it's not on the way to achieving that objective, you actually have to tweak your marketing to get it back on track, or maybe even change the objective. So one page for the marketing objectives, state the objectives. The heading for the page is marketing objectives. You list the 1 through 3 or maybe 5 marketing objectives, and then the rest of the page actually discusses and justifies these stated objectives. There you go. There's the audio overlay for the marketing objectives. Okay, target market. Target market. All right, let's record this. Okay, so for the target market, throughout the semester, I have been suggesting that you target one primary market. Now, some of you will be targeting a B2B market, like, for example, the Franchise Group. They are taking Green Pro partners into Latin America, and they are targeting the commercial market. So for the franchise, they are going to talk about they are going to describe their target market in terms of organizational size, organizational revenue, so the type of organizations that you are targeting, the specific geographic locations, probably metropolitan cities, for example, and the sector dynamics. Okay, so that's for a B2B market. StemBright, you're probably doing a B2B market too, but you're actually probably more B2G because you'll be going business to institution, which are typically government. Schema is not a government-owned institution, however, it's a private organization. So, okay, B2B for the Mavericks doing StemBright into Europe. Okay, and the two groups focusing on co-works, I would imagine you're doing B2B as well, because co-works needs to target co-working shared spaces. That's an organization. So yeah, I think the green team and the GIST team are probably doing a B2B market as well. But I'm open to other thoughts on that. It's just my initial suggestion. Now, if you're doing a B2C market, like for example, the Wolf marketers and the marketing mix team and the happy winners, then you are going to describe your target market in terms of cultural values, in terms of demographics, geographics, and psychographics. And remember, psychographics is about, well, let's go back and look at each of them. Cultural values, okay? So cultural values in Asia, in Latin America, these are collectivist cultures, so they are community oriented. They put a high value on relationships in their culture. Your organization can use that to their advantage. So in this section, you describe what are the cultural values of the target markets. There's no mention of the organization. You're talking about the target market in this section. And when you move on to demographics, what you're talking about here is the age, the education level, the income level that you are targeting for your specific marketing efforts. Geographics, okay, Latin America is a big place, right? It's not one heterogeneous, it's not one homogeneous market. In contrary, it's heterogeneous. So that means that targeting Mexico is very different to targeting Honduras, for example. And so which parts of Latin America are you going to target? Or are you going to go in with a standardized approach, right? So geographics, you need to flag what geographics you're targeting. Is it Latin America in general, or is it specifics? Is it Asia in general, or is it just Japan? Psychographics, what you're talking about here is lifestyle. You're talking about activities, interests, opinions, and of your identified target market. So like, what do they like to do? What's their, how do they spend their days? Focus only on the primary market. That's my recommendation. Lovely. 2 pages on the target market. Okay, then we go into the bulk of your marketing plan. So at least 6 pages, I would say 6 to 10 even. Look, 1 page on each of these is not a lot. Each of the categories that I've got here, let me talk it through. Let me put it on audio and talk it through. Okay, what are we doing here? Marketing mix. Okay. The marketing mix is the bulk of your marketing, international marketing plan. The marketing mix you might consider in its most basic form as the 4 Ps. But as we've talked about in class, the world has moved on since the 1960s, and we have much more sophisticated tools to put to work in our marketing mix. Like, for example, instead of just considering P for product, we can consider product and brand strategy. So what is your product strategy? What is your branding strategy? I've got a slide on each of these, so I won't go into depth just on this slide, but you need to have an overall product and brand strategy. Similarly, so for distribution and logistics, are you going for a saturation strategy, for example? In integrated marketing communications, are you looking at developing brand awareness? What are you doing? Are you developing customer relationships? What are you doing? What's the emphasis with regards to integrated marketing communications? In digital marketing, what's your overall strategy? Are you focused on improving search engine optimization, or are you focused on developing an online presence for your brand, for your offer, for your organization? And with regards to sales and pricing strategy, it makes me think that, for example, GreenPro Partners is probably, I wonder, all three actually, GreenPro Partners, STEMbright, and CoWorks are probably going to use a sales force rather than a direct to consumer. Now, GreenPro Partners, the marketing mix team that is targeting Latin America and focused on pet owners, that would be a direct to consumer distribution strategy. Okay, so all right, so we'll leave that there and we'll talk about each of these 5 recommended marketing mix elements in turn. Okay, good. Right, so there's the audio overlay for the marketing mix slide. Right, let's go to product and brand strategy. All right. Okay. Right, so what's your product? Are you using a standardized product strategy, or are you using an adaptation product strategy? What's your degree of customization? What is, if you're adapting, if you're modifying your product, what is it that you're adapting and modifying? Is it just the packaging? Is it maybe this level of support services that accompanies your product, or is it to the core? You're changing the product ingredients, for example, to accommodate local tastes. What about the brand strategy? Are you adapting the branding in any way, shape, or form? An example of adapting a brand strategy might be, for example, with CoWorks going into France. Is CoWorks a good brand for CoWorks going into France? I mean, what does CoWorks mean in French? We need to make sure that interpretations are not going to get the brand in trouble. Is there something more appropriate for CoWorks to brand itself going into Europe, specifically France? Food for thought. There you go. Also, with regards to brand, don't forget about symbolism. So, you know, some symbols in international markets actually mean something different to what they mean in their home market. All right, let's talk about IMC. Alrighty. So this slide flags some important considerations with regards to integrated marketing communications. In integrated marketing communications, we need to consider the various options we have with regards to traditional media, and this includes traditional advertising media channels such as TV, newspapers, magazines, brochures, even public relations. Okay, so each of these aspects of traditional media and their respective media channels need to be considered as to which ones are appropriate and you're going to put to work and which ones are not and you're going to leave out. Okay, so the ones that you choose to put to work, you need to say what, when, where, and how you're going to use each of these channels, right? So you don't need to devise the actual ads or anything. You need to describe to your marketing team, in your marketing plan, you need to describe what this advertising will be, how it will be put to work, when, how often, how much. So, you know, if you're saying you're going to use XYZ magazine, okay, which page, what size ad, what's the message, what's the strategy? If you're targeting pet owners, for example, maybe you're going to use some, you know, the puppy dog eyes to make it an emotional appeal, and that's your strategy for your advertising. For co-works going into the Latin American commercial market, the franchise team, maybe you want to generate some public relations, some nice editorial content in multiple trade magazines that is relevant to your respective commercial market. So with regards to the integrated marketing communications and traditional media, you need to state what the advertising objectives are, what the media mix, what the media channels will be, what the message is, and what the costs are. Same if you're going to do sales promotion, what's the objectives, how you're going to put that message out there, what is your message, and what are the associated costs. I've already flagged that if you're going to use, if your target is a business, commercial, industrial market, then you're probably going to be needing to use a personal sales force, and so your sales objectives need to be considered in this. Apart from traditional media, consider digital media. Now, if you're going to tell me that you're going to put together a social media marketing campaign, you've got to say which platforms, what exactly are you going to put out there? Are you going to make freebie posts on Twitter, and you're going to generate some visual content for YouTube, and you're going to use Facebook as well? Okay, all right. Well, you need to say what's the difference between the message that you put out on Twitter as opposed to Facebook, and how is that the same or different to what you're putting on YouTube? And you know, consider what platforms are the most appropriate. Now, apart from an organization posting freebies on you know, content that they are generating on the various social media platforms, you can also choose to make a budget and engage with online advertising, with banner advertising, with precise targeting that is enabled through Facebook, for example. You might use search engine optimization as well. You might use Google AdWords. You might use even geo-targeting. And we haven't talked about that at all, but some of you might know what that is and want to put that to work. Another option is somewhere in between old school traditional media and digital marketing is an email marketing campaign, or another option is mobile marketing. Okay, all right, so that's integrated marketing, communications, and digital marketing. Lovely. All right, what's next? Got an audio overlay for that. What's next? Distribution and logistics. I need some water here. Logistics. Okay. When we're talking about international marketing, of course, you've got to get your product from one port to another, from the origin port to the destination port. Well, you need to select your ports. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to know how you're going to get there. Road, air, ocean, train. And so port selection and mode selection are very important decisions with regards to logistics. And then how you're going to make sure that your product is going to arrive safely and in one piece. So packaging, containerization, labeling are all logistical considerations that need to be flagged. What documentation is required, and consider the ownership and the intermediaries in between that you'll be working with to achieve this logistical feat. Just like ownership, you've got to make sure that insurance is taken care of, because like if it's damaged along the way, it's important to know who owns what and when, right? So from the manufacturer through various intermediaries to the end user, the ownership of the product shifts hands along the way. And so if there's damage in transit, then insurance claims need to be made. Maybe you're going to outsource the whole transportation thing, so that's a way around it, but it's not necessarily the best option, and you will need to your analysis needs to show or justify whatever recommendations you are putting forward in this marketing mix, and similarly so with your logistical choices and your logistical recommendations. Okay, so that's logistics. Nearly there. Okay, 4 more slides to go. Right. Here we go. We're going to record something for distribution. Okay. All right. So, distribution. Now we're considering our intermediaries. Are you going direct to consumer, or are you going to use a number of middlemen along the way, such as wholesalers and retailers? Well, if so, who are they, how many, and what type of intermediary are they? You need to flag what is your method of interaction and operation with regards to each of the intermediaries. So basically, we're addressing supply chain management here. So of course, we need to include consideration of import and export agents, warehousing and storage requirements, and the type, size, and location of such requirements. There you go, short and sweet for distribution. Pricing. I need more water. Okay, so with regards to pricing, here's a list of things that you might use to help you understand what needs to be covered. I've got a typo there, and I'll fix that in a minute. What is your cost of goods? What is the cost of the shipment of goods? What are the transportation and handling costs, shipping and handling costs along the way? Are you paying those fees, or are intermediaries responsible for those fees? What about insurance and custom duties, for example? Import tax and value-added tax, are these necessarily included in the pricing that you put forward for this particular client, this particular marketing plan? What are you considering with regards to markups and discounts? So what is your gross margin, and effectively arriving at a recommended retail price? Okay, pricing, right? So basically you've got to justify, and you've got to show that you've thought about the different aspects of the pricing. All right, so now that's the end of our marketing mix, and we move on to the action plan. My suggestion here that the action plan is a 1-year calendar action plan. So it might be, for example, from January 2021 to December 2021. Okay, here we go. So your action plan is a step-by-step implementation plan. You need to take the details that you've put forward in your marketing mix, and you need to show when and where and how each of these recommendations will be undertaken. So it's typically a calendar-based action plan, and it's typically for 1 year. You might do from June 2020 to June 2021, or you might do your action plan in terms of pre-launch, launch, and post-launch over a 12-month period, for example. 3 to 4 pages for an action plan is kind of short, so you know, you're going to have trouble to get the amount of detail that you need. It presented as a table. The columns that I'm going to put another slide in next so that you see what an action plan might look like. Okay. All right, now the marketing budget. The marketing budget can just be another column in the action plan. So let me go in here into my files and pull up something. I'm actually going to pause my recording here so that I can search through my old files and pull up an actual action plan that I'll put in an example. Okay, pausing. All right, back to it. So now I've given you, after the action plan, I've given you an extra slide that shows an example of a format of an action plan. It's a marketing plan that I wrote for a car detailing organization and a few years ago. So you can see I've organized it in terms of a 12-month calendar. I've said what's going to happen when. I'm flagging who I'm targeting with each of the efforts, and I'm linking it to one or more of the stated objectives in the marketing plan. And what I'm suggesting to you in terms of budget is to add another column and just cost it out there. Right, so what's that going to cost? You know, XYZ dollars, that many dollars, right? And this one's going to cost that many dollars, so just cost it out. Okay, so now we're going to put an audio overlay on this slide for you. Okay, where's my insert tab? Insert my audio. Right, here we go, action plan. Here's an example of an action plan for you that shows a 12-month timeline where specific marketing mix recommendations are implemented. So in this column, I'm stating exactly what is happening, and in this column, I'm flagging who the target is for the recommended action. In this column, I'm connecting it back to one or more of the stated marketing objectives, and in the final column, I'm costing it out with an estimated budget. Okay, there you go. That's the audio overlay for your marketing mix. And there you go, there's the budget. I've given you some more clues for the budget. So some of you who are more financially minded might prefer to do a more detailed budget. Well, here's some clues on the aspects of what you will need to cost out for your marketing budget. So like, what is the advertising you're recommended going to cost? What is the cost of shipping and handling for your recommended transportation and distribution? What about product development or product modification or customizations? What's that going to cost? And other costs that you might like to also include in your marketing mix. Sorry, marketing budget. Okay. So the last thing that you will include in your international marketing plan is a list of a full reference for each citation that is included in the report. Now, most of the citations that you will be using will be in the macro environmental analysis, supporting statistics, for example. Similarly so for the industry analysis. There should be no references to any corporate websites. Look for more credible information sources than corporate websites. Please use APA referencing style, so that means use author and year for the in-text citations, and for the full reference you need to state author's year, title of the paper, publisher. If it's an online source, you need to state access date and the link. I should be able to check all your references. Alrighty, so there you go. There's the recommended structure of the International Marketing Plan. Of course, you don't have to listen to me at all, but you'll see that the grading criteria is actually linked to how I'm recommending that you structure your plan. There you go. Good luck. Look forward to reading your plans. Alrighty, so we're done with demonstrating to you how to do an audio overlay, and at the same time I've killed two birds with one stone and giving you a talk through of the structure of the International Marketing Plan. And I think it's due April 5th, right? Okay. Well, there you go. I hope that was useful for you, and welcome any questions. See you again soon.